Right, it's action. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?
What's up, bro? We are back. This is the crew, Divine, Aaron, Kellen, for episode number 3 of Good Men. So today's episode is going to be all on the topic of fatherhood. And you don't even need to be a father to take in some of this grade A content that we're about to share to you. But tonight, as a group of fathers, we just want to highlight our experiences with our own families, and then also highlight some of the father figures in our lives that help shape our lives and help shape us to become the men who we are today. I'm the newest father in this group, so I'm really looking and I'm excited for some of the info from my two brothers here, because tonight's going to be a real good learning experience for me, and I'm just excited for Divine and Aaron to just share a little bit about their experiences. So what's up, Divine? Talk to us.
Yeah, I mean, fatherhood is just an amazing topic, you know, especially when we sit here as fathers, when our boy Dre sits over there as a father. You know, I am blessed and fortunate to have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old daughter. My 10-year-old Desiree and my 4-year-old is Gabrielle, and you know, they're unique in who they are, but they're the same in what they believe, and I think that's a strong testament to the way that Vanessa and I are raising them. So first and foremost, you know, when I think about fatherhood, I think about me being a father, because there's two sides to being a father, right? You have a father, or you are a father. So, you know, those are different perspectives. Because like when I'm looking at my father as I'm growing up, I'm saying to myself, like, why is he always on me? Why do I get treated differently than the women, the girls get treated? You know, I come from a large family. I'm one of 7. So, and I'm second of the 7. And my oldest is a sister. Her name is Lisa Owens. There's me. There's my sister Latasha, who's a year younger than me. Then my brother Russell. My sister, I have a brother Ivan who passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 3 some time ago. Then there are my 2 younger sisters, Cassandra and Antoinette. So my mind set around being a father is rooted in first being a son, right? Because you're a son before you're a father. So some of those experiences that I have, some good, some bad, have all been able to shape and motivate me to be the best version of myself as a father, because I'm looking at my experience with my dad and I'm saying, you know, these are things that I appreciate about my relationship with my father. I know my father was a good athlete. I always went with him to the park when he played, you know, 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 with his buddies growing up. And when my father, because my mother and my father, although they were married the entire time until my father passed away in 1993, my father was, you know, in and out of the home. But I remember very vividly a few things. I remember whenever my father came to pick me up, to take me out with him, I always had to take a shower. And I always had to wear the best pair of jeans and shirt I had in the drawer. I was not going out with him looking sloppy. Yes, I had to look fresh. So I embody that. Like that's how I am now. My aunt Takesha, who's actually only a year older than me, and my grandfather remarried, and she basically told me that I shop like a female. So you know, I get up myself. I like to look good. So I give my father a great deal of credit of that. Obviously, the gene pool is an important part of it, because I'm a direct descent of my father. So there's so much that I can get into, and I will over the next hour. But like when I first think about fatherhood, I think about myself as a father, and I think about when my daughter was born. I was focused on being the greatest father that any father could be. And so I think I've lived up to my expectations, because every day I look at my daughters like it's the first day that I'm seeing them, and what can I do today to be a difference and a blessing to their lives. So that is probably, for me as a father, that is kind of how I look at it in a nutshell.
So that's awesome. Can you give us your idea of fatherhood?
I kind of look at it's something that I've never known, and I think that's, to me, is our experiences are so different and so layered, especially in the communities that we come from or the neighborhoods that we come from. So fatherhood is something that I've never experienced directly. I always had an indirect experience of fatherhood through my friends' parents. So fatherhood to me was an opportunity for, or at least I considered it an opportunity and a responsibility, right? So like a new responsibility that I never knew how to prepare for, and an opportunity for me to kind of break a generational curse. So whenever I think back on growing up and that my mother did all she could to be the best that she could for us, and she always tried to provide certain things for us that she couldn't necessarily do. So we always had mentorship. We always had, I can name them, Mr. Crane, my friend's parents, Mr. Dean, Mr. House, Mr. Carney, Mr. Breedy, like all these different people that kind of stepped in as the surrogate fathers for whatever time you were around them. I could not, when I went home, it was my mom, and she played a role. She was a powerful woman, but you missed out on a lot. So when I knew my wife was pregnant, I had, it was a lot of fear. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do something I never was trained to do, and I never knew how to do? Am I going to be effective? Are my kids going to get what I'm trying to teach them? Will I be too hard on them? And then understanding the other layer of things, understanding that I have to raise boys in a context that other people, my peers, maybe my white peers or other peers, don't have to raise their kids in. That other context is also something that I have to think about. I have to now prepare them not only to be men in the society, but to be Black men in the society, because they're going to be immediately racialized. So it was always a fear. It was like, am I going to be that effective? Am I going to give them what they need? Am I going to provide for them an opportunity, a blueprint, so to speak, for them to then become a certain kind of a man, and then be able to raise a family in the same way? So to me, it was like, all right, this is your opportunity, Aaron, and this is your responsibility. So you have to learn. So I do the best I can with learning how to be, and sometimes I'm very introspective about it now. So I sit back and I'm like, Aaron, were you too hard at that moment? Were you too aggressive at that moment? Should you bring it? Could you kind of recoil a little bit and then give them more of an opportunity to be expressive? Mm-hmm. And my son now is a lot more expressive, because I told him, I want you to speak your mind. I want you to speak freely around me, and don't be so fearful, because the way I present, I'm a big guy, and to my kids, I'm a giant. Mm-hmm. Even though my 10-year-old is like 5 feet, he's already up there.
You're actually a giant to some
to me.
Some adults.
So me being, and not even being just tall, but just a big guy. So he's my kids are always looking at it like this. So when I raise my voice, or if I get aggressive, I get sometimes nervous after the fact. Did I scare them? Like sometimes I want them to feel like, all right, this man is crazy, but I don't want them to be afraid to come to me. So in this whole experience of me becoming a father, it was immediately kind of, it's a responsibility thing. It's a new experience. It's an opportunity thing to give them something I never had, but it's also, I fear what's going to be there, because I can do the best that I can do, and still they're going out into this world. Yeah. And we already know what's happening around the world right now, and everything's focused on America. We already know that world they're going out into, they can be wiped off of the planet just by existing. So it's a lot that goes into it.
Mm. I love that, this question brought about for both of you guys, your experiences with your dads, and I know you highlighted the fact that, dad was in and out, and you had some very special moments that you were able to share with him and that really shaped you. And your experience was that you never really had that quote unquote father figure in your home, so you had to look exterior for that, but that was provided to you by a bunch of people who you named. I was fortunate enough to grow up with, my mom and my dad both in the home. And my dad was NYPD. So my dad was like strict. So when you talk about when I think about fatherhood, the first thing that comes to me is like discipline, because like that's what I got from my dad. It was like, we were like by the book, like had to be in on this time, had to be out on that time, had to do this, make sure chores were done on Saturday. And like my friends growing up would ask me like, Kel, like, is your dad home? I'm like, yep. They're like, nah, come to my house. Like that's how it was. Like that's how it was. I remember he caught us one Halloween with like eggs in the pockets. He was like, oh, what do you got there? He smashed all the eggs in my pocket. Like that was my dad, So like when I think about fatherhood, immediately to me comes like discipline. And honestly, I'm trying to like reset my own expectations of what fatherhood is, because I don't want to just be like a disciplinary to my kids. Like I never approached my dad with certain things because I knew how he was going to react. Right.
More balance.
Yeah. His whole thing was like, I'm not your friend, I'm your father.
Yep.
And I think you can sort of be both at times, and at least that's what I want to push for myself with my family, because I don't want my kids to hide things from me. Like you said, I want my kids to be able to speak freely and bring these things to me. So that's my experience with, my father. And I've learned a bunch of things from him. God bless him. He's still alive. He didn't have a dad. So for him, he was starting that, I'm going to be that strong black man for my family. So he started it off. And now it's on me to bring it to the next generation. So I think he did the best that he could with the skill set and the knowledge that he had. It was like discipline. Let me make sure my son goes to college. Let me make sure he gets in no trouble with the law. Let me make sure that he abides by these laws so that he can survive. And then just by him surviving, he can now pass this on to the next generation. So that's really my firsthand experience with fatherhood. I know you said, or I would love to ask both of you guys, like, when we mentioned the moment that your kids were born, like I would love to tap into 5 minutes, 10 minutes before your first child was born, like what was going through your head, and like just maybe run us through some of the scenarios, because childbirth can be traumatic, right? And I don't know the ins and outs about how your kids were born or your kids were born, and I think that can shed some light to the people watching as well.
So I'll take the first baton here.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is one of the strongest mentally and physically as a woman, one of the strongest that I've been around. So when I tell you that she worked every day, the entire time she was pregnant with my daughter Desiree, she worked every day. So much so that the day that her water broke, she was on her way to work. Her water broke at home.
Wow.
She was on her way to work because it wasn't, what she would consider going into labor, right? So she calls me about a half an hour later. She's like, you know what? I rode by the hospital. They're going to check me in. I think the baby's coming today. I was working at Cablevision at the time. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was driving my car down Vets Highway, and I turned around, came back to the shop, dropped the other supervisors off, and headed to the hospital. And so at that moment, while I'm driving in my car, and I had to get my front window fixed. I had to get a new windshield, and the rubber insulation, it came off. It was like flapping on the roof of the car. And I'm like, no, not right now. I gotta get to the hospital. So I stopped at Safe Light, and I get it fixed quickly. I explained to them the situation. I get to the hospital. My mother and father-in-law are already there, and it's like 10 a.m. in the morning. By 3 p.m., we are in the delivery room, and I mean, it was pretty simple and easy. It was Desiree, and when she was born, you feel a sense of relief, because if you pay attention to what's going on around you, there's a lot of horror stories about birth. So, and I've always been someone who is conscious of my family. My brother and I are both husbands and fathers, and we're dedicated to our families, and we take a lot of pride in that fact. So, so there's all sorts of things going through my mind. First, just want to make sure she's healthy. She came out, arms and legs, screaming, and I can't describe the actual feeling at the time of a birth, but like I knew I was ready to take on that challenge of being someone. I'm her first love, you know? So I take that very serious. So that was, for me, I'm just doing the things that I would normally do. My fundamentals taught me to take care of my family. So, and that's what I knew I was going to do. And I knew as my direct offspring, my own child, that I was going to do that at a very high level. And I'm pretty proud of the things that I've done. And, I'll say quickly that, you talked about your dad being a disciplinarian, and
big time.
I think there's a time where you be a disciplinarian, but even when your children completely screw things up, you have to be able to still get them to trust you to have that conversation. I think the reason why you were probably a little intimidated was because he was so consistent in his message of discipline, discipline, discipline. So when you did something that you wanted to talk to him about, when you didn't go to him, it was because you were worried about
I already knew.
So I don't want that.
So
I've learned those lessons through being a basketball coach, because I've coached so many other fathers' sons, right? So I learned to be able to have honest dialogue, just be respectful of how you converse, especially with an adult or with an elder. There's a certain way to say things, but you always have to be able to speak your mind and from the heart, or it's going to take you so much longer to get to what you're trying to accomplish. So that would be a big thing for me. So
nice. Aaron, talk to us. Any story in particular that you can remember from any of your kids being born?
Both of my kids were C-section babies. We wanted to do it natural at first, but my son, my first one, Brandon, was an enormous baby. And he was running out of room. Every time we would go to, when we were getting to the end, he was running out of room in the womb. Every time when Portia was 5 months pregnant, everybody was like, "Oh, you're having twins? Any day now?" She's like, "I am 5 months." She was way out there after 5 months. And so Brandon, I didn't know he was gonna, I didn't know what was to expect, because she's petite and our family's small, and my family's big. So he's running out of room. And when we went into labor, well, it was planned. We had like a date that we were gonna go in because he was just getting big, and she's like, "Look." And the doctor basically leveled us and said, "Look, we will wait, and we will try to do this in a way that you guys feel comfortable. But I'm letting you know that it will be difficult because he is so big." And when we went in there, and she was in labor, and we had our room set up. I think they induced labor because we were like a few weeks, I think, after the due date that they said. We were like a week or whatever it was, a week and something. And they were like, "Okay, it's coming." We had the whole thing set up. And when we went in there, our doctor came and started looking and doing all the checking and stuff. Okay, and we were dead set on we want to have this natural. Said, okay. So when the labor, and the inducing of labor, and she's like, "You're not dilating. Dilate the way you need to. This is not going to. He's too big. He will not come out of there." Basically saying that. So when they scrub, you had to get they put you the whole little hazmat looking suit on and everything, and I'm in there, and I know they got to do the cesarean. I was like, "I ain't going over there." He's like, "Come on over."
So you were in there looking like my boy
Joe.
Yeah, I looked real I had everything on, and so I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting on the other side of the curtain while they're doing their thing, and he's like, "You can come on out," because he was about to pull Brandon out. I was like, "No, thanks. I'll wait," because I saw in a reflection, I was like, "Oh," I was like, "No." So I'm sitting there like this, and I'm waiting. I'm like, no, y'all can bring the baby, or y'all can kind of like put the partition that way so I can come over, because that looked crazy. And but when the baby came, Brandon was almost 10 pounds.
Damn.
And he was like 20. He was like, he looked like a toddler in the newborn baby wing.
Right. I wonder how that happened.
But my wife is very fair skinned, and I thought he was gonna come out dark skinned like me. So she's light skinned, African American. So when you look at him, babies come out looking real light anyway because they gain more color. He looked really transparent in the thing. So I'm looking, and everybody's like looking at me like, which one's your baby? And I'm just like, in my mind, I'm like, how do I explain this one? And so when I point, like, oh, we see, because he was really big. And so like, oh, okay, we understand. Like, but in my mind, I was like, why is he so light? But he ended up getting a little bit more color. But at that time, it was everything was kind of set up. And my mom when my mom retired from her job, she started a little babysitting business.
Yep.
And she had kids, from newborn to like, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, whatever in there, coming after school. And so I knew how to take care of children, like changing Pampers and burping and clean, all that stuff. I was kind of like, I was skilled in. And in my mind, no matter how nervous I was about being responsible for a new life, I compartmentalize everything. I think my trauma in foster care and my trauma in my life growing up leads me to kind of like box things off. And so that I don't cause myself more internal anxiety, I kind of like, things I can't control, you're in a box. So when the baby came, I was just like, all right, what do I know I need to do? I know I need to make sure that the baby is fed. I know I need to make sure that they're checked and changed, and I need to make sure that they're breathing. But we would do shifts. So I said, when my wife got a C-section, they're down. They don't really have a lot of, it's hard. So what I did was, I said, what's going to help my sanity is if I give her, because we try to do cute, we'll do this together. It's the dumbest, in my opinion, decision that we made. Oh, we're gonna get up and we'll switch, and I'll get up once and then you get up once. It was the dumbest. We were so mad at each other and had attitudes for no reason. And I was like, nope. I said, here's what we're gonna do after like the first couple of days. I was like, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take an 8-hour block, and that means you go do whatever it is you need to do. Go to sleep if I were you. And when it's your turn, you come in and I'm leaving. And so I would take 8-hour block. My 8 hours would always turn to 10 to 12 because I was good. I remember watching the Law and Order SVU marathons when we were waiting for the baby to come. So when we came home, that's what I would do. So I would be with the baby, doing everything that needs to be done. He'd go to sleep. He was clockwork. I'd be watching SVU. And then as soon as he starts, I knew exactly at a time, exactly. We had a portable, we had this bottle warmer. So as soon as he started, I would click the thing on, put it in there. As soon as he was like full on, I'm about to go, I'd pop it in his mouth, done. And then once he was kind of like back down in his state, I changed a little pamper, put him right back, he's done. So I never had a problem with him crying, screaming. We were always on it. And then when it was time for her to get up, she had a full night's rest. She was uninterrupted. And then I came and I gave the baby to her. And then she did her thing, and I would help still if she needed it, but for the most part, I can go and go to sleep. So that kind of kept my sanity, but I was basically a compartmentalizer. I didn't let the stress get me. Everything was kind of set up, C-section, and then get home and all that other stuff. So it was just scary. I didn't want to hurt the baby. That was kind of like my thing. I didn't want to drop the baby, right? They be falling out of bed, you know how they do. And you think the world's over because they roll out, and you're like, no.
That happened once.
That happened.
One story about me falling. I been on my head. So anytime I screw up, I just blame it on.
Remember that one time,
on my head.
That's crazy. So like yours was super structured. Like for me and my wife, ours was like super unplanned. So we knew we were having twins. Crazy story. I guess I should let everyone know this. So we found out that we were pregnant, and it was awesome, and we were happy. Literally on the car ride home, I'm asking my wife, I told her, I was like, babe, what if there was another one in there that we didn't see today?
Right.
I said that to my wife on the ride home. And she's like, nah, like you're crazy. Like there was a big ass, like 50, like in screen, like there was another thing in there. We saw it. I was like, babe, like what? It could be possible. She's like, no, you're stupid. Like, don't worry. We're just having one. Let's be happy. Okay. 2 days later, we go to her actual doctor. This was like a walk-in gyno. We go to her actual doctor. I'm like looking at the screen. I see like one little fuzzy dot over here. I see another little fuzzy dot over here. I'm just like looking, like not really saying much. I'm looking at my wife. And then I notice that she's looking at the screen and she looks up at me. And then the next thing you know, the doctor's like, did they tell you you have 2 in there? And I was like, what?
What did your wife say? What did your wife say?
She thought it was my fault. She was like, why did you say that? Like, you brought this on. So then the joke was like, if I said it on the way home, would it be a third one in there next time? But so anyway, it was a normal pregnancy. Literally, we're about to go to like Miami for our quote unquote baby moon. I don't know if you guys had to deal with that, but I'm pregnant, so we got to go somewhere. So we were going to Miami for a baby moon.
Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's the first time
I know what you're talking about. We just didn't do it.
Yeah. So instead of the honeymoon, it's the baby moon. So we went for a check-in appointment the day before, and they told us when you have twins, that you have to watch out for this thing called twin-to-twin syndrome, where one twin like dominates the other, and basically takes all the nutrients, and the other twin gives all the nutrients, and like literally both die because one gets too much and one doesn't get enough. So we found out that she had that. They told us we couldn't fly. She had to get emergency surgery like 2 days later. So she had this laser ablation surgery to like break up all the blood vessels between the babies. Like that was successful, but like super scary because you're like, my wife is like, I got 2 babies inside. So that was successful. Then a week later, they say, oh, your cervix is like too small. It should be like 3 inches. Yours is only like 1/4 of an inch. We're scared that you're going to go into preterm labor. Then they wanted to do this next procedure called a cerclage. What ended up happening is that they ended up doing the surgery. It was almost successful. They broke her water at 21 weeks. So my son Chance, his water broke at 21 weeks. And the reason he has the name Chance, because literally we were having the doctors, like discussions with the doctors, like what's the chances, like he's going to be alive? What's the chance, like we're going to have to abort him? What's the chance we're going to have to abort the whole pregnancy? But they told her if she stays on bed rest and she lasted 23 weeks, they would admit her into the hospital and monitor her. So she did that. She lasted 23 weeks, and she lasted with her sac like broken and leaking from 23 weeks up to 27 weeks. 29 weeks, excuse me, 29 weeks. So we lived in the hospital for 7 weeks.
That's a long time.
I was working in this office from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at night, then jumping on the train, going up to the hospital, sleeping on the couch, on the sofa in the hospital. I had my CW Post bag with all my clothes there, just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The moment that my kids were born, I was at work, and I get the call, and I'm asking her, like, are you sure? Are you sure this is happening today? Like, and then I hear the nurse in the background, like, is your husband on the way? So then that's when I really knew that I had to leave. And I remember one thing that was crazy for me was I was trying to shoot a video. I was like, hey, what's up, guys? This is Kellen. Like, this is my last moments. Like, as Kellen, like, not the father. I was like fumbling for my words because I was so nervous. And then the nurse was like, Daddy, you ready? Like, literally the 20 seconds into this video. And then I like had to cut this off and go in that room. But this whole like father experience, like, for me was like super traumatic from the beginning. Before my kids even got here, it was like crazy, chaotic. And it's kind of been the same ever since with twins. You just like, you learn to live in like this sort of like organized like chaos, and especially with boys. But that's really my story with the kids, and it's special for me. It's special for me because like when I think back at our journey between like me and her, and then my journey as a father, it's like it started before they even got here. Really having to take care of them and nurture them, like so. For everyone watching who's not a dad, like it's not to say that you can't be a father figure for other people as well. Or if you have a medical condition and you can't have kids, like there's always an opportunity to be that father figure, to mentor someone else, to educate someone else on a better way of living, because that's what I feel like fatherhood is for me at this point, outside of doing the changing the pampers and the diapers and feeding. I know we were talking about special moments for us. So that was before our kids were here. So have there been any special moments for you guys, like where as a dad now that you were like, man, like that like really like made me like super proud? Like my kids are super young, so I haven't really had those moments yet, but I would love to hear from you guys, like certain moments that made you feel like, man, like I'm doing a great job as a dad.
Yeah. So my daughter Desiree, she is extremely autistic. And so much so that when I go in for parent-teacher conference, without seeing her name on her writing or on her art, you know the difference between what she puts on paper and what her classmates put on paper. So I've always been very proud of her high level of maturity and intelligence. And when I think about my little one, Gabrielle, who, by the way, I thought parenting was going to be easy. Desiree kind of, she did her thing, but, she was more laid back and more afraid of the discipline that Vanessa and I provided. Gabrielle, she's definitely, she's testing the limits. I mean, so much so where this child eats salami, cheese, and bread, but won't eat the combination on a sandwich. Like, you can't convince her to do anything that her mind doesn't want her to do.
That could be a great quality.
And so she's like her dad, very impulsive. And when she's upset, you will know that she's upset. So
verbally and physically.
Both.
Wow.
And so I want her to continue to be that person who she is, because that's who she wants to be. I just want her to utilize it as a strength as opposed to as a weakness. Understand, you can get to the line, but let's be sure and let's be conscious of the decision you're going to make when you get to that line and the consequences that are going to follow in behind. But yeah, I'm proud of the fact that my children are healthy. I'm proud of the fact that my children are intelligent. I'm proud of the fact that they're growing and becoming, wonderful people. And I give my wife a great deal of credit because we have the perfect balance. I'm like in your face, impulsive. I scream when I talk, and my wife is laid back and relaxed. If Vanessa tells you to go sit down, you definitely want to go sit down, just because it's not even in her personality to express her anger that way, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So when me and Vanessa have a disagreement and she starts to raise her voice at me, and I'm like, all right.
Watch out.
So I'm very happy. I'm blessed. I think that there's so many different stages to fatherhood. I think, like I said, I'm a son. So I have my father-son experience. I'm a father, so I have my father-girl-dad experience because I have two daughters. I'm a mentor to young people because I've coached basketball for such a long time. For the most part, I've done those things because I'm competitive, but also because I realize it takes a village. So your father is not the only father figure in your life. My grandfather, Kermit, my mother's father, is the most influential man in my life. I'm biased. He's my grandfather. It's a direct bloodline. This man had a grade school education. He didn't graduate from high school. He was a painter by trade, but he took care of his family. He brought himself a home in Amityville, and when we needed help, even though he was remarried with 5 children living in the house, he moved all of us to Long Island, and we lived in the house with everyone else. He was the man in my life who made me truly believe that I could make it and that I could be the man that I am today. So I give him so much credit for that. So, and he was a huge disciplinarian that I did not play with. I was afraid of him. I mean, there was one time we were up at the bowling alley and we were instructed that we had to be home before the lights came on. We had 5 minutes and it was a 10-minute journey home. When I tell you we sprinted all the way, we wanted no smoke with that man, none whatsoever. So
talk to me about some of the moments for you, man.
I think my kids are they're intelligent. I like when people compliment them. unsolicited, like when we're just kind of like, whether it be a parent-teacher kind of, meeting or something, they're like, your kids are so polite and well-spoken. And I'm like, is there any other way? That's always kind of, in my mind, it's like, that's, and I say thank you, but it's like, in my mind, I'm like, have we evolved in such a way as a society that we have to compliment children on what they need to be like at all times? It's very weird for me, but it's like we teach respect, old school values that we're very, very old school. Me and Portia are very old school in certain ways, in terms of a child understanding their place, in a home and outside talking to adults. But we also want them to be expressive. So Brandon is both. Brandon is the nicest, too nice, this child you ever want to meet. You know what I mean? And I love that about him. And also, I'm always nervous. I'm like, well, is he going to get taken advantage of because he's too, like, you could really literally disrespect him. But if you are cold, like, would you like my shirt off of my back? I'll be cold and you don't have to be. Like, that's him. And he's really, really nice. So his heart, just knowing how empathetic he is. He's just a normal and natural empath. I love that about him. He always gets these awards where students vote on it, and then they award him like in their particular grade. He's gotten these awards like back to back to back about him just being the most helpful. Like he's always willing and wanting to help someone who's struggling with whatever work they're doing or whatever they're doing. He's always trying to help, give assistance. So I love that about him, and people recognize he's a good guy.
Yeah,
and
it's from his peers.
Right.
That's great.
And the little guy is starting to come around with that too, because he's a little bit more gangster than Brandon. I don't know why number two. Number two has always got that little chip, and he's a little aggressive. And I'm like, look, you need to come all the way down. Like he always thinks that he's bigger and stronger than what he is. He's like, it's very weird how different they are. But in terms of their hard work in school and not going to, they're not going to struggle in terms of what they're doing, like because they're focused. We make them do work sometimes. So that's just the thing. But it's like, right? They're not going. I just bought their summer workbooks for the next grade, and so we do that, and then we have them do reading, and then you got to tell me, about the reading, 5 things that you pull from it, do some comprehension. I'm just saying,
awesome.
we do that because you know what, kids have the brain drain over the summer, so that takes a whole month, 2-3 months to get them where they need to be, and the school's already started. So I don't, we don't do that. They're going to hit the ground running. A lot of times they're ahead of the game, But the fact that even if they want to complain about that, and I'm very cut and dry with certain things. Certain things I want them to have a voice, and certain things I'm like, well, you should probably just get over that because it ain't changing. You know what I mean? This is what we do in this household. You know what I mean? If I went to school forever and I was able to amass the degrees that I got, and your mother is working on degree number 3, least you can do is do your elementary schoolwork. I always kind of put it, and they're always looking at me, looking like, it's like they can't get around that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to have a doctorate, but you're not complaining about school. So the fact that they don't complain that much, people always give them compliments unsolicited, just like, oh, your kids are such beautiful kids. They're such good kids. I love that. I love that about them. So that's cool. And I'm tough, but I also tell them I love them. I'm always that guy who I'm always, smothering them and certain things. Daddy loves you. Come give daddy a hug. I try to do those things so that I don't appear to be the devil when I have to put my foot down. And I'll tell you one quick thing. I remember my kid, it was just Brandon. Bryson wasn't born yet. Brandon was like probably 3. He was 3, right? Portia could have been pregnant or whatever. And Portia was like, you need to go clean up your room. And he was like, I don't want to clean it up now. And I'm thinking to myself, what in what world do we do this? Like, why? In my day, when a parent told you to do something adult, you just hopped on it. You didn't even talk about it. Like, so I'm just like sitting on the couch, and I'm just like, my back is slightly to him like this, because he's talking to her over there. And then she was like, Brandon, I need you to go clean up your room. And then he said something else. I'm like, what is going on? And so she's like, Brandon, and then before she could say it, he's like, I'm not cleaning up my room. Like, he stopped in the hallway. I said, oh my God. So I'm sitting there like, I'm going to gangster him so bad. I'm going to get him so bad. So he was in mid-speech. I got off the couch so fast, and I ran down the hallway. And I'm running. I mean, full speed. And I was the fastest one on all my basketball teams. So it's like a locomotive. I'm running, I get there, and he's like, so he's doing this as I'm running, and I grab him And I pick him up and I hug him and I kiss him. I'm saying, Mommy asked you to go do something. What are you gonna go do? He said, I'm gonna go clean up my room. I said, thank you, Daddy loves you. And I gave him a kiss. He walked to his room and didn't say one word. So it was funny, and that the fear that I could have put in him if I would have shook him out of his shoes, as opposed to, that this could go left, but I'm gonna hug you. And I'm gonna let you know that you have no physical control right now. Do what Mommy asked you to do. So that's kind of like one of the things where it was funny that he didn't test me. And he was just like, let me just go.
That's a great story.
No, it is. I love that story. Like killing with love, right?
I ran up on him. He didn't know how to do. He was just going like this in the hallway. And I just picked him up. And I was like, Daddy loves you. I gotta remember to go clean your room. And he did it. And then, so, it gets a little difficult with the mind games. Lately, it's their electronics, but and that's what I'm into now. I just just give me everything.
Yeah, I just take the headphones off Desiree's head and just take them upstairs.
Give me everything.
Take everything. They hate it.
How about you, Kellen?
So, I haven't really, I guess them walking has been great so far. My kids still aren't talking yet. Again, they were 29 weekers, so they're very early. We actually just got approved for speech therapy. So I'm really looking forward to learning myself on ways that I can help them and help facilitate them being more expressive with their communication. I guess, hugs and the first high five. I say, go dunk. They have this little basketball. And they go dunk, and they look at me, and then they start clapping. So that's where I'm at right now. That's where I get my joy of little things like that.
So it's funny because whenever we speak and you mention Miles and Chance, you always tell me the stories about how they're bouncing off the walls in the apartment. And so, it's like you want them to be safe, but you sound like you're enjoying the fact that they're bouncing off the walls.
They're crazy. This morning, before I'm trying to get ready to go to work, and they're both crying, they're jumping, climbing on me. They don't want me to leave. They know when I put my mask on that I'm about to leave the house now. So they get all anxious and fidgety. And I told my wife, I'm just take them out. They're going crazy right now. They literally are climbing on everything. They just take them and just let them run. So that's I don't have a lot of moments right now.
That is funny that you just said that. When Brandon first started to become more aware of his space, just conscious of where he's living. I'm a teacher, so summertime I'm with them all summer. And I'm playing with him every day. We're going to the beach. We're doing this and that and other. So it's time for me to go to work. And he didn't understand that. So he was asleep, obviously. I go to work. I come back home. He ignored me when I came back home. He was pissed that I actually left for the day.
Wow.
He literally ignored me. I said, what the hell? I came in the house and I said, hey, babe. Hey, Brandon. And I'm going to hug him. He just kind of walked away. He was so mad. How dare you leave? He was so mad that I left him that he did not speak to me. I said, what the hell? I asked my question, what did I do? She was like, Aaron, I think he's mad. He has an attitude because you left. He was asking where you were. I'm like, what? He didn't understand the concept of work and I have to leave. And it was the weirdest thing, though, because we were hanging, he wasn't he's a mama's boy now, but he was kind of a mama's boy, daddy's boy. He would come, when he was first born, I would come home, take a shower, change, and then I would lay him on me, and then he'd just be hanging out. He would always, he wouldn't leave. He would hang out. He'd be under my arm in my armpit, or he'd be on us. He was our little road dog. So it's just funny how they perceive the world. It's going to make you laugh. We would take road trips. He'd be in the backseat quoting James Brown. We'd be listening to old school, and so we had the big payback on, and he knew all the words. And then when the part comes with James Brown screams, he would scream. It was all those moments I will never forget, just him knowing words like James Brown song, Stevie Wonder songs, why does he know these words? And then scream at the right time. It was hilarious. But
yeah, so it's interesting because we sit here and we talk about our firsthand experiences, and I'm looking at Dre's face, so I know
I live all of this.
Yep. So I know Dre can understand what we're talking about as well. But if you turn on the TV and you listen to a certain segment of what's being broadcasted, these stereotypes about Black men and them not being in the home is a major concern and an issue for me, because my two best friends, Dwayne and Kareem, are just like the four of us here. They are amazing fathers. amazing fathers. Mentors that I know, Gary Charles, David Lato, my father-in-law, and I can mention tons of other men are amazing fathers.
All my friends have fathers in home.
Amazing fathers.
I was the only one that didn't.
And here's the thing. You don't have to be in the home to be an amazing father.
Right.
You just have to be in their life. You have to be able to respect and understand the differences that you may have with their mother, right? And appreciate her as well, right? Even as a married man, like, we do so much of being this macho male figure, right? And our wives or our significant others or our children's mothers, they gave birth, most of them, some of them breastfed, and they did most of the nurturing while we went out to hunt, basically, right? And make sure that we can provide and take care of our families. So let's talk. I really want to get into the stereotypes of fatherhood and why those stereotypes are wrong in the Black community. So, and I'm gonna hand this off to Dr. Johnson right now, because I know he looking at his chops right now. Charles, to get
well,
to this.
I'm gonna make it. I said it in the car, so I'm gonna make it real short. When we think about, and I have to be just 100. When we think about white supremacist ideology and what it means in our community, you have to create a boogeyman. You have to create a safe space for the group that you're trying to entitle. So if you create a safe space by making sure that you condition in the minds of everyone, not just the people that you want to create the safe space for, but for the folks that you are racializing. When you do that, it's purposeful. You create the stereotype so that they can be conditioned into everyone's consciousness. Then that stereotype creates an ethnofallism, almost like a physical representation of it in someone's mind, right? So if you close your eyes and somebody said the word thug to you, you automatically think of a Black man with baggy jeans and a hoodie, right? You say slave, you think of Black people in chains, right? Even though slavery existed in antiquity everywhere, and it had obviously different characterizations, right? In America, it was race-based and self-perpetuating, and it's completely heinous. But so if you say those words, right, and by the way, a thug could mean a mafioso type, right? But because we have buried these things into our consciousness, and we Black people are overrepresented, as criminals, right, on television. White people commit more crimes, right, on average on every single crime except for murder, right? But we always look at Black people as criminals. So if you could criminalize someone, you can racialize, you can create a racial hierarchy where you put white people at the top. They're at the apex, and the darker you are on that scale, the worse off in society you have it, especially at the bottom for Black people. People will live that, right? And then regardless of what you see, you're going to go along with what you know and what you've been conditioned to know. That's cognitive dissonance, right? The way Frantz Fanon kind of explained it, right? Because you have been so heavily educated and conditioned in one way to where you are leaning onto that conditioning. So regardless as to what you see, when you see that difference, it creates such a dissonance, a disruption, internal disruption, that you have to figure out how to get back to a state of racial equilibrium, if you will. And then so I have to believe in the stereotype. And so for a long time, these ideas about what Black malehood is and about what Black fatherhood is, it exists in the ether. Everyone believes it, no matter what they're seeing. They can see Divine Smith all the time. They can see Kellen all the time. They can see Dre all the time. It doesn't matter. I know what you guys are. You guys are thieves, right? You're lazy, even though your ancestors created this entire country, right? They work from can't see to can't see. Can't see so early you can't see in the morning to so late you can't see at night, right? 14, 16-hour days, but you're lazy, right?
Sounds like toughness to me.
Right? It's like, you're a thief, even though somebody stole you from a continent and put you on other continents. So these things exist. And as Black fathers, we constantly have to live in a space where we're fighting stereotypes. Whether we want to or not, it becomes essential that we fight those stereotypes by being exemplary. So it's unfortunate, but this is the way. Look, if you want to continue to convince people, the only way the system works in America is if people continue to believe the lie that they've originally been told. So in order for that, if that's going to be a consistent thing, then we have to continue to keep these stereotypes alive. And that's really what we're dealing with when you think about it in a broad way. And so that's what, it's a system. And then we would have to what we would have to do is tell the truth. And we're not interested in America. We have to tell the truth, and then we have to re-educate people about who Black people really are. And that's a hard thing to do when for generations, for centuries, you've been lying.
Yeah, so I think, so for me, stereotypes, and I'll be short because I spoke a little bit about stereotypes. I'm going to give Kellen an opportunity to really, express himself on this topic. Like I said, my father, who I love, I thought my father was a good person. He had his own thing that he was dealing with in his life. And, he had to deal with those decisions that he made. But I come from, a single parent home for the most part, and I turned out just fine. They make it seem like, if the father is absent from the home, that the children, they don't grow.
No shot.
And I think what actually happens is you still grow, but some lessons that you may have learned from your father, you learn from your experience. Or if you're fortunate enough to be mature enough, you learn from another man who is willing to be honest with you and tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. Because the truth is what's going to help you to grow. Mm-hmm. So the stereotype of, Black men make babies and they're never around, it's not true. That's everywhere. That's not a Black man. That's an irresponsible thing. That's a careless. Yeah. That's a carelessness that you decided, knowing that you didn't really want to take care of that child. You brought that child in the world and then just went off and disappeared. So I think it's a terrible stereotype. And I know so many married or in relationship couples who have done a tremendous job, caring and taking care of their children and to the point where their maturity level is improved because of the experience that their parents provide. So, and like I said, and this is going to be a reoccurring statement for me. It takes a village. It's not just your dad. Like your father is not with you all the time. Like the lessons that you're being taught are how to go out and do for yourself, because that's what's going to happen. There's going to be plenty of times where you're out and like in the blink of an eye, you need to make a decision. You need to be able to trust the fundamentals that have been created around you. So, and I'll say this one last thing, and I'll turn this over to Kelly. So, a mentor to me is someone who leads by example and is able to articulate those examples through what they, through their speech, and they speak with you and just being honest with you. So you want to trust them so that you can come back, and whether you did something that you're proud of or you're disappointed, you're comfortable having that conversation with them because you're not really worried about the judgment.
Right.
So,
yeah. I mean, I think it's very unfair, a lot of the prejudiceness and like judgment that goes on for Black men as fathers and just overall in the United States today. Are there irresponsible Black men? Yes. Are there irresponsible white men? Yes. Are there irresponsible Asian men? Yes. Like, I think the overrepresentation of Black men being cheaters or not there for their kids is just honestly not fair. And a lot of that is put on us due to the over criminalization of the Black man in America. And I'm just so proud of our group here, but also the people that we're being able to influence now with this live stream to show the other side of the coin. Because I just feel like that, if it bleeds, it leads. Like that's a line they use in media, right? If it bleeds, it leads. Anything negative, they want to put that out first because that's what's going to drive dollars, right? But they're not going to put out the story of Coach Charles and his 7 kids who all went to college, right? They're not going to show that side of the coin, right? Because that's not sexy enough. That's not front page lines, right? But those stories exist, and they exist not only in New York. They exist in New Jersey. They exist in Europe, and African Americans and Blacks in Europe and France. They exist all over the planet. I think now is the time for us to mobilize and really show the other side of the coin, because it's an unfair representation. And if we don't actively show ourselves in a different light, or just do the things that we do, but broadcasting it by doing things like this live stream, then how do people know? They only judge by what they see on TV, unfortunately, in the absence of meeting men like ourselves. So I think we're doing our part right now to change the narrative on that, because it needs to be changed. And now as fathers, I'm sure we're also having a lot of these, well, you guys more than me, having these discussions with our kids, right? Raising Black kids in America and Black boys, and how to act with, interaction with the police, and Black girls and how to interact with young boys, and just like life in general. No boys. Just life in general, right?
To the house.
It's something that we have to. It's a topic that we have to discuss, right? And they talk about, right, one of the white privilege is like the word right now, right? And like that's not something that a lot of like other families have to have. Those are conversations that they have to have, especially early in life. But going out as an athlete, I always had my hood on. I always had a hoodie on and sweatpants and my backpack on. But like I didn't think of that as a thug, right? But to know that that's what some other people think of as a thug. And I was an honors student, I went to AP classes, got a scholarship for my brain as well as playing
stereotype,
ball, right?
It's just because you're Black and you have a hood on. Like I see white young men with hoods on,
and their pants down to the butt, but like, are they labeled thugs, right? So like, I think we are taking this head on, which is what I really love. And we're taking this challenge head on to change that narrative and show people that, what you see on TV, what you see on Power, what you see on, whatever you're watching isn't the reality for everyone. And if you judge, a whole group of people, just like if we judge the police, we can't judge the police off of the actions of a few of them, right? We can't make that gross generalization. Just don't do the same thing for like Black people in America. Like you can't make this gross generalization that all Blacks are thugs. Yep. But just like we can't make this gross generalization that all police are bad, because they're not. Yep. There's bad apples in every group. There's racist doctors, there's racist bankers, there's racist physical therapists, there's racist financial advisors, there's racist teachers. The problem we should have is like pulling out and just being against all races. It doesn't matter what your profession is. And I think that's the issue that I want to really teach to my kids and teach and empower them to spread love and be that change that you want to see. And I applaud us on doing that on a daily basis.
And by the way, racism isn't a color. That's another thing it's colorless. Like there's all different types of racism. It really is. So
I would say that there are different types of bigotry or discrimination. Racism does have one color connected to it. I'm sorry, racism is prejudice plus institutional power to decide someone's life outcomes and their destiny. Black people don't have racism. They can't be racist because they can't decide if someone can go to college or live in a neighborhood or whatever. Black people can be bigoted, they can be discriminatory, they can be prejudiced, they can be mean, but they can't be racist because they have no power to decide anyone's life. However, but the thing that you said that really kind of connected to me was about how, what's represented in the media is not who we are. The issue is white folks don't have to know who we are if they don't want to. We have to know who they are to navigate and live. So here's the issue is if white people wanted to go to the bank, they can go to the bank and they'll get the white teller, the white bank manager. They can go to the stores because we live in hyper-segregated communities because that's what racism produces. They can go to stores, they can go everywhere. They can live their lives where their towns are literally next door to the Black town and not have to have any interaction with the Black people across town. Black people have to, because we have no institutional power, we have to know whiteness profoundly because it's our life depends upon it. So we have to always navigate in and out of these different circumstances. When I go to the bank, I'm dealing primarily mostly with white people. Institutionally, when I go to my school, I'm the only Black male educator there. That's insanity, right? I'm not so special that I'm the only one that can exist there in that space. So we have an institutional implicit bias and explicit bias that controls the whole system. And the reason why stereotypes are so effective is because you've already primed the system with centuries long conditioning. So that becomes the issue. White people in America have to get to know their Black counterpart, their brown counterpart, their Asian counterpart. They have to understand, learn them, right? Become interested in the humanity of them. It becomes very, very difficult when we have been so segregated, and right now everybody is so nervous about what's going on because facts have never been facts to one segment of this community. We have always lived this life. We've always spoken about it. We've always gotten ignored about it. It's just now everybody's paying attention to what we've been saying 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago. So stereotypes are going to exist here until we have an opportunity for folks to really truly know us. But then again, give the people out there a little game. We got to learn knowledge of self. If we learn knowledge of self, we wouldn't be a self-fulfilling prophecy either. We like to watch Power and then try to live like that too. We like to hear a hip hop song we were just talking about in the car, and we want to live that too. Our parents could be the freaking mayor and a psychologist, but we want to go out in the street because we heard it, how sexy it is, and how that's who we gotta be. We gotta be those real niggas, because that's how we came up. That's how we need to be. We gotta be ball players. Like we want that. We gotta have that thing. So when I started playing basketball, I was so different, and I would be so laid back, and I'd speak just like I'm speaking now. And people like, who is this guy? And then why is he tall like this? And I'm a big man. And I'm a big guy, and I was so mean on the court, and I was so aggressive. But off the court, I was just a normal, regular guy that was conscious about who I was. So I think consciousness and knowledge about self really, really will propel us to live in our truth without trying to embody the stereotype that makes us appear cool.
I love that. And we got to teach that to our kids on a daily
basis. Your intelligence is your coolness.
Yep.
There's so many things about us that makes us dope. We don't have to try to be that guy. You know, and that's why when my kids in my school see me, I don't dress like the other teachers. I don't talk like the other teachers. And I happen to have a doctorate that the other teachers don't have. So now they're looking at me like, yo, this dude is at the top of the food chain in terms of education, but he don't walk around talking all tight. He don't look all tight. They can come up to me and give me that, and it's immediate. And that's why we need Black and brown teachers in the schools, because we can immediately connect to them. But we have to teach them that intelligence is dopeness, that your individuality is dopeness. You can be the artistic nerd and not be considered corny or whack because you're not trying to write rhymes in study hall or in class. We have a versatility. Black magic is who we are. We just have to embrace it and want to learn more about it.
I love that. Yeah.
So just for all the participants, if you have any comments or questions, you can drop a line in the live chat, and we can see that, and hopefully we can get to some of those questions. I kind of want to turn the page, and I want to talk about, being a loving father to your children, to your wife, your spouse, your children's mother, and to your loved ones. What does that mean to you, Kelly? When I mention that,
a loving spouse. I will say that again. I grew up in a very disciplined, structured household. So I love my parents. They have provided a ton for me. But when it comes to expressive love, there was not a lot of that in my household. So there was not a lot of hugging and kissing and telling each other I love you. So honestly, I learned a lot of that from my wife and her side of the family. She's Italian, so Italians are all about family. It's family over everything. So being around her and experiencing that has really showed me, and I try to now incorporate that on my side of the family. I never used to, before I hung up the phone with my mom, make sure I told her every single time that I love you. Now I do that.
Yep.
That is a new practice for me.
Yep.
My dad, my brother, just being able, I think, again, we're strong, Black man, you gotta be that way. And that is a stereotype. And I sort of fell into that because that was the structure that I was raised in, but now I feel more comfortable in my own skin saying I love you. I say it to my friends now too, dude, I love you, man. White friends, Black friends, Asian friends, just spreading more of that love and not being afraid of, saying those words. So that's been a huge step for me in just the last couple of years. And it's changed how people interact with me, because I feel like people now look up to me more and trust in me more. And listen to the things that I have to say more, because they know that at the end of the day, like, I actually am coming and saying things out of a place of love and not judgment.
Yep.
And I preach to people a lot of times. I try to bring the best out of people a lot of times, because a lot of times people say they want to do things, but like, I challenge them to actually do those things. But in my way of challenging people now, I'm making sure to do it with love and not like, well, you said you was going to do this and you didn't do it, so you're a loser. It's like, nah, bro, like, let me help you. What can I do to help assist you now? Like, let me take on some of the burden to help get you there. And that's been huge for like my wife, my mom, my dad. It's improved my relationship with my brother over the last couple of months, which is great. So that's just something I'm looking to like just consistently be on top of going forward, because I've seen how it's changed and paid dividends in my life.
I think for me, it's about introspection. I have to constantly get back into asking myself why I did something, why I said something, why I reacted a certain way in terms of my relationships. So I'm very kind of regimented in a lot of ways, and I've always had that love in my household. My mom who adopted me early in Johnson was a godsend. She was my own personal superhero.
I love her.
She's
amazing.
She was an amazing, just a person. She's the one who got me to play basketball. I didn't want to play. I was always tall, and I didn't want to play. Everybody asked me, I used to lie to the coach, like, yeah, I'll try out, and then never try out. And I remember one day in ninth grade, the coach asked me to play. In ninth grade, I was 6'4". And I was like, yeah, I'll try it out. And then I snuck out of the, when the bell rang, I snuck out. I didn't have to go past his office. Well, I did have to go past his office. It was a change, like, when people are getting out of school, so much crowd. So I kind of just placed the background and snuck out, and I left. And I was like, got him. And then the next day, I avoided him. And then after that, it was done. Like, you already got the team, you good. Next year, he was smart. He went to my mom. I didn't know this until later. He went to my mom, and I remember coming home before tryouts after school one day. And I was just doing my normal, I was a little, I wouldn't say chubby at that point. That's when I actually lost a lot of weight. I just came home, but my lazy, kind of like, I'm just chilling. I ain't got nothing to do. My mom was like, hey, let me talk to you for a second. I was like, okay. Normally, my mom does things she's phenomenal when she wants to have something done. She's so masterful at it, and you don't even know you got played until after the fact.
She does a great job of getting on point.
Oh my gosh. So she's like, let me talk to you for a second. I was like, all right, cool. So I went, she's like, what do you think about basketball? I was like, I really don't think about it. I said, I play it with my friends. And, my friend's uncle taught me how to play. She was like, I mean, have you thought about trying out? Your brother played, you're getting kind of tall. This is 10th grade now. I'm 6'5" in 10th grade. And I was like, not really. She's like, I think you should try out. I think you should try out. I already know what that tone is. I think you should try out is, I'm going to keep on, you're going to try out. You want to just let this one go. So when she said, I think you should try out, I was like, okay. And then after that, it was like, that was it. I tried out. Of course, I made it because they already had that deal in the background. I was 6'5", 190 pounds at that, or whatever it was, 180 at the time. So I was going to be on the team. And then after that, because I'm so neurotic and crazy, I started working out, just on things that I knew big guys to do, strength and jumping ability and, stuff like that. So I became a shot blocker. That was my mom. That was that love. She always knew what I needed. And she always knew what I wanted. So and the love was always there. She always told me she loved me. I got hit in the face with a baseball bat when I was a kid. All kinds of scar tissue. My lips still have it. And I remember I wanted to get plastic surgery, and because I had to rewire all my teeth. My brother did it. Long story. So
you guys fighting.
That was a long story. So I was so angry because I had scar tissue, scars, and everything. And I'm like, come on, man. And so I said, Mom, I want to get this done. I want to get this taken care of. And she was like, okay, just wait a second, because this is right after it happened. I mean, I still have scar tissue to this day, but it was crazy at that point. Some time went by, I kind of started healing. That's the way I look right now. And I said, I want to get this done. She said, okay, Aaron. She said, it's covered by insurance because it was an accident. So you can get this done. She said, but may I ask why you want to get this done? I said, because I look crazy. And she was like, Aaron, you're handsome. What are you talking about? She's like, I was like, Mom, do you see my lips? Do you see this? She said, every time somebody breaks on me, they're going to come right here and then my mole. And she's like, okay. I said, I want to get older. I want to have, get a girlfriend. I'm mad young. I want to have a girlfriend. I want to have a wife. Nobody's going to like me. She said, okay, Aaron. So I'll call the doctor tomorrow. She said, but the bottom line is I got a question for you. do you really, really want to be connected to people who will judge you on something so superficial and you are such a great guy all the way around? You're well dressed, you're clean cut, smart, speak well. I teach you to be respectful. You got a lot of great things going for you, and you want to have this whole entire surgery because of what other people think. And I'm just like, you know, in your mind, you can't even, you want to lie, like, yeah, you know, and I'm like, you know, in my mind, like, she got me because it was like, it ain't, and when I had to think about it, it's like, it ain't that serious. And then I never ended up getting it. And I can never have, and I've never had a problem getting a girlfriend, or I never had any issues, but in my mind, that was it. But she taught me to be more thoughtful, to be more self-loving. She had the love for me. So it's like me as a father with my own kids. It's really about me trying to get them to think beyond themselves at the moment, think beyond that moment, to be more introspective, to be more connected to us, especially the family unit. And just to have more, you know, I want them to have empathy, but also to be smart. You know what I mean? So when you were asking that question, you're thinking, and I'm just like, well, how can I answer this? I always had to love in my house. You know, even, you know, but foster care was a monster too. So it was like healing from foster care with the love of Early Johnson created, you know, a better me, but I still had issues. So I still had to learn.
Yeah.
And my wife is very introspective, and she had a hard life. She had a hard life growing up like I did, you know, in certain respects. And she actually taught me, you know, how to be better and how to love better. And I just try to love my kids like my mom loved me. So I'm always over them, smothering them. But I am a disciplinarian as well. So it's like a balance. My mom always navigated the line. She was perfect. I don't know how. She was very old school Mississippi. You know, she'll whip your ass in a minute if she had to. And like, it is what it is. I don't hate you, but you got to get these, right? You got to get this. But in a second, she'll hug you and kiss you and tell you how important you were to her and how important you are to life, period. So I just try to balance and try to embrace those things.
Yep. So, and I kind of will piggyback a little bit off, you know, what you just said. It started the loving feeling towards my wife, my loving feeling towards my children, my loving feeling towards any of my loved ones. It started with my mom. You know, like I said, my dad was in and out. So my mom kind of wore that father's hat when she needed to. That's that discipline you're talking about with your mom. And, you know, and it's funny because, you know, my mom and your mom's
cool.
Great deal of time together. Because I work with her.
Roadies and basketball games.
Yes, and they, you know, because you and Russell obviously graduated the same year, high school. But having my mother to always be there for me, whether I succeeded or I failed, and no matter how she articulated that to me, because when I failed, she didn't have the nicest things to say, but she always said what was necessary. So that's where that loving feeling started. And then me being a sibling and having 6 other siblings, that was another step in my progression of love, because I learned how to love them as brother and sister, or brother. Those relationships, and those weren't always easy, and they're not always easy now. But you know, our love, which we learned from our mother, is what keeps us so strong. So, like, you know, in speaking about fathers, like, it's so vital how the mother perceives the father to the children, or the things that she says around the children about the father. Because if you come from a broken home, maybe the mother and father just didn't get along,
right,
and they needed to split up, and the way to exist was to co-parent as opposed to being a couple. So if my children are with their mother and I can't trust her to say, you had a conversation with your father, that conversation is for you and your father, I'm going to respect him as a man, and you have to speak directly to him. And whether you agree or disagree with your spouse, making sure that you stay united in the fact that we're always going to communicate about your well-being and the maturation in your life. And, you know, my mom, she did that for me, and what the biggest thing I learned, because I'm learning, me and my wife, we got married, we're young, you know. I mean, I'm 31, 32, she's 28, 29, something like that, and we think, you know, the stereotype of marriage, like we're gonna get married,
And I was like 30 years
love each other. We're gonna get married.
Say, hold on, 31, you 31? What was that?
I'll be married 14 years in September. So 14 years in September. So what we had this perception of what marriage was going to be, and we learned, you know, very quickly through the years that our marriage is what we make of it. But what I knew, no matter what, was whether my marriage succeeded or failed, that we were always going to be united in how we were going to go about raising our children. So I am very respectful of her toughness. She knows, I tell her all the time that I think she's a strong woman and that I look up to her in so many ways. And then, you know, my friends, you know, I surround myself with like-minded people. I want to know that you're going to be truthful and honest with me, because that's the only thing that can help me. I don't have a problem with my ego. It is fine. I need the truth. I need to grow. I need to be a better version of myself. So I think, you know, the people we surround ourselves with is a very important part of, you know, the maturation in being a father and fatherhood.
Yeah,
so,
and I did have a lot of those examples there, you know, not having one in the home, you know, because my dad was my biological father who was alive. I found this out. I found out that my biological father was alive in the same week that I found out that my biological
shocked and amazed.
My biological mother was alive because we thought he was dead. All of our lives we didn't know, but we found, you know, through Ancestry.com and where my mother was at the Northport VA Veterans Hospital. She was alive. We found that out within a couple of days of each other, and it was really, really weird talking to him, because he turned out to be the person that I thought he was my entire life, the selfish person that's not really interested in the children that he made, right? So it's interesting that I don't have that trait. You know what I mean? Like, and I was always under the, like, whenever I said I was gonna have kids, I was not gonna be the guy where my kids will grow up and be like, you know, this dude. You know what I mean? Like, I don't ever want my kids to be like, oh no, we survived that dude. You know what I mean? I want them to be like, yo, my dad was tough in certain spaces, but that dude he hustled. My kids saw me working 2 jobs, you know, when it was just Brandon. He saw me working 2 jobs and going to school. You know, like he watched me graduate 2 times. You know, he was able to go to my wife's 2 of her graduations. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's certain things that we taught them by just being it, you know, that he's getting, you know. And so certain things we don't have to say, it goes without saying. So the love that I express to them every time, even when I have to get in them, I want to be like, babe, you know, I love you. You probably want to punch me in the face right now, and you won't do it because you know that'll be the end of you. But I still love you. You know what I mean? And I love you. I know you don't like this tone. You don't like what's going on, but I love you. I love you more than anything, you and your brother. I said, but I will do what daddies do. You will be disciplined. You may not like it. I said, but we're trying to get us, it's about growth right now. So you may have to ignore my tone, accept the words, we'll move on. And once we moved on, you can come and sit and hug and do what you do. So just trying to balance. It's hard.
It is hard, and it's about balance. I agree.
As we start to like drop the mic here, I think it would be great for us to maybe share, you know, one thing that we would like to share with any fathers out there, any piece of advice, any piece of wisdom. Say there's a new father out there that, you know, we would want to share from our experiences with anyone out there. Does anyone want to like?
Yeah, so I'll say, be true to yourself, accept who your children are, allow them to grow and be that person, because you don't want your children to be in a situation, and this is from personal experience. It's like when you're in high school, the peer pressure of your friends and the things that you're thinking and you would like to articulate don't always align. So, you know, you're thinking one thing, you're saying something different to your friends, and it's because you're uncomfortable being yourself. And I think people accept you better when they just truly know who you are. Because, you know, the more people are around you, it's no way around you being yourself.
Yeah.
You can't hide it. So you can put on, you know, the first date, you know, lingo, you know, but like that's not really representative of who you are. Like the consistency in your character and your behavior is going to be who you are, and like those are going to have a longer lasting effect on the people that matter. On the people that matter, because everyone can't accept their own personal growth. It's not your fault. You be an example, you honest with them, it's their choice to decide whether or not they want to go down that path that you chose to, which has yielded great results, which they can see, right? Because that's your resume, right? Or if they're going to say, I'm going to do it this way, and when it doesn't go in their favor, you know, now it's, you know, what am I going to do? And lastly, I'll say that decisions, when you make a decision, you have to accept the consequences. I never want my children to feel that they have to do something because I want them to do it. No, I want you to do something constructive and positive, right? So like if, for example, my daughter's playing a lot more basketball right now, okay? So I tell her all the time, I don't need you to play basketball. I play basketball. I love basketball. Do I want you to play basketball? Of course. You're 10 and you're 5'5". I mean, I would love for you to play basketball, but you're not just going to sit in my house and do nothing. You have to do something constructive and positive with your time and with your life so that you grow, because time is a factor in life. So my thing would be to be true to yourself, allow your children to be who they are, be an example to them of who you are, and build trust with them. I told my daughter, I said, you can hang around whoever you want, but I hang around a certain type of person. You can't bring whoever you want to my house. That's all I'm asking. I'm asking you to respect the fact that your mom and I only associate with positive energy or people who are growing. Like, you don't have to be perfect, but like, you can't come around me and make the same mistake over and over and over and over and over again. I just don't have, there's no value there unless you're a child, you know, not an adult. So I want to teach my children to be morally sound and want morally sound people around you, because even morally sound people are going to make mistakes. But at least they're going to be conscious of the people that it affects in addition to themselves. So.
And how about yourself, man? If young fathers out there, what advice, one thing you want someone to take away from this discussion today?
Patience. You have to be patient with your kids, patient with yourself, patient with your spouse. Allow for growth in all those areas with your spouse, with your kids, and with yourself. You know, I like the word practice. You know how they always, doctors are they're practicing medicine, right? Because they haven't perfected it. Because if they did, then we would have cures for everything, right? So as a parent, you get no manual. You have people who've written books based, you know, child psychologists and stuff like that. But again, the psychology of Black people is different than the psychology of others, and you know what I mean? We have different, you know, we grow up very differently. So no one can really direct you on how to raise your kid. They can give you kind of pointers. They can give you, you know, kind of a loose outline, but you got to figure out how to fill that outline in. You know, you got to put meat on the bone, so to speak, right? So I think with practice, when I say practice, the idea here is when you're trying to teach something or grow something, best practices come into play, right? As a teacher, you want to make sure you're utilizing best practices to educate children, right? Or you will be so old school to where there's a disconnect. So you're going to have to figure out how to connect with your children through best practices, and you're going to have to practice those best practices within yourself before you can impart anything to your kid. And you're going to make mistakes, you're going to stumble, you're going to feel like a failure. And the question becomes, how do you respond to those feelings? You know, so if you feel like a failure, are you going to wallow in it, or are you going to, you know, be really introspective, you know, really self-reflective? What did I do? How could I have done that better? Am I man enough to apologize to my children? I have, right? I've gone and I sat down. I said, I
You will.
apologize. I'm so sorry.
You will. It's coming.
It's going to come.
Not yet,
You know,
but I'm
you'll
not
have
too
moments.
proud to do that. At some point,
Right.
you know?
You're going to have those moments. And I've had moments where I had to really say, I'm sorry, Brandon. Daddy was rough on that one. Daddy was rough on that one. Because I could get rough, you know what I mean? When I want something done the way it needs to be done. And, you know, so you have to have that patience. You have to have practice. You have to have the ability to just fall back and have perspective, right? I guess this alliteration is these P's, right? There's to have this perspective that I'm not perfect, another P, right? And I'm not here to perform a certain way. I'm here to actually raise you. And this rearing is tough. And I'm gonna make mistakes, but just as much as I'm gonna make them, just allow for me to grow too. So your kid is gonna have to, you're gonna have this synergy, this relationship where they understand that you don't have all the answers, but a lot of your answers are the best answers for them until they can get out and go pay, you know, for whatever they want to do and live how they want to live. So patience, practice, really, really think about the perspective that you have and how you have to be, you know, reflective of that and just try to grow. The idea is to grow, continue to grow. Don't be stagnant. Do not allow your kids to be stagnant. That's about it, you know.
The alliteration of these P's, like that.
I like that a lot too.
I like that.
Again, I'm the youngest, father here. So for me, it's just it comes down to two things: spread love and lead by example. Spread love. It's you're gonna get more bees with honey. So that goes for like your kids as well. Like I was disciplined a lot as a kid, and I definitely plan on like towing that line with my kids, but I also want them to know that, I love them. Like you said, that story I love. We ran over, hugged them. What are you going to do? Like, spread that love. And then lead by example. A lot of times, like, I know, again, for me, I heard this, do what I say, not as I do.
Right.
And what I want to do is, do as I do, because
Right.
I want to show you guys, because
Right.
it's hypocrisy to say one thing and then do another.
Yep.
So that's a big thing that I want to do is lead by example for my kids. But yeah, so that was today's episode.
That was today's episode.
Episode number 3.
Let's do this right. This is how you find us, okay?
Okay, let's do it.
You find Divine Smith on social media. My Instagram is at diverse_skill_training, or on my YouTube channel, which is Diverse Skill Training. Please subscribe. And I got that.
Good. Make sure you subscribe. Check us out. We're going to be every single week. You can find me personally at drdr.kels on Instagram. Check us out.
You can find me on Instagram at Dr. That's Dr_Aaron AARON DD Johnson. That's on Instagram, and I believe I'm Aaron D. Johnson on Facebook. I don't know. If you look for Aaron D. Johnson, it's a name that's very common, but you'll see this chocolatey goodness on that profile pic, and you'll see.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I got to get a head start. I got to go.
This guy's out. He's got to use the bathroom or something like that. Your prostate can't hold all that stuff in. Yo, guys, thank you for tuning in. Next week, we'll be back here, same time, same place. Until then, peace.
Let's get this work. Go.
Let's do it.
Let me see. The Divine's shoulders are broader than